Housing Working Group Nick Dury and seconded by Frank Anderson. Welcome, Nick Dury.
Hello, Conference.
Hello.
So, you heard from Dr Docherty there about people in Scotland hurting. And that's really what I want to focus on today, because the people are hurting. Now, my background in housing started with a period of homelessness 21 years ago. And I spent 2 weeks in a hostel, which wasn't very nice. But as a result of the 2001 Housing Act, I received a tenancy in the high flats at the back of this building, Cedar Court. And that really, my experience, homelessness, moving into a GHA tenancy, and then having to spend the next 5 years fighting to save my community, typifies what's gone wrong with housing policy. Now, I thought, how on earth do I summarise what on earth is going on in Scotland right now with housing? Very challenging, because whichever way you cut the cake, we've had decades of people promoting home ownership in government, promote home ownership. Well, you look at the statistics. If you want to buy a house in Edinburgh, that's 11.4 times the average wage. The mean average, not the mode average. Okay. So you can't access home ownership. Well, private rented sector, Edinburgh, our capital, 49% of the average wage goes on rent. Now, bear in mind, that's the mean average, not the mode average. So, things are bad in the capital. Well, maybe there are cheaper areas around the rest of the country. No. This city, our biggest city, 2 years ago, the City Council declared a rent crisis. Rents in this city are over £1,000 a month. That's more than the mode average wage. So we're in the position now where in our big cities, things are unaffordable in the private rented sector, unaffordable to buy a house. Home ownership's out of the league of most of average Scots. And then on top of that, what about the social rented sector? Well, there's been a 20% reduction in the availability of affordable housing. That's more or less the social housing sector. 20% reduction in the availability. 244,000 people on the waiting list. And then you look at, well, what is the cost of this? What's the human cost? 16,000 bairns are homeless in Scotland.
Shocking.
There is a homeless city the size of Perth in Scotland. The size of Perth. Now, I attended a demonstration on Thursday, organised by the Scottish Tenants Organisation. And I heard from Linda McVeigh and Maureen Thompson about their children who had died in homeless hotels in Glasgow. Frankie McVeigh, 30 years old, not a drug addict, no drink or alcohol problems, died of an overdose. Because these hotels that people are languishing in for 48 weeks before they access temporary accommodation. Now, you remember my story. 2 weeks in one of these hotels in a secure tenancy. Well, it turns out that if you demolish vast numbers of social housing, 66,000 public homes, but it's not just the big cities. Throughout our rural communities, now we held a number of evidence gathering sessions, as part of the working group. And every which way we looked at it, there was no accommodation, a real shortage of accommodation. So we have to fix that. Now, Conference, I'd urge you all to have a look at this paper that our working group's produced, Tackling Scotland's Housing Crisis. There's copies over there. There are so many problems. As I said when I began this, it's very difficult to sum it all up. There are so many problems, and we've come up with a number of recommendations. Now, we're not asking you to endorse every single one of those recommendations. That will have to go to National Council, because there are just so many. But party to have the answers to those questions. So we're calling for this motion to enable us to produce a pamphlet to get into the hands of campaigners to tackle these issues on the ground right now. Conference, I ask you to endorse this motion.
Well done. Thank you very much indeed, Nick. And thank you for so graciously allowing the interview to take place on the balcony, which I'm sure you can hear, but you're not deterred in your campaign. And can I also use the opportunity to plug the Fringe at lunchtime in the Lesser Hall, entitled Changing the Balance of Power in Scotland's Housing Schemes, to be chaired by Catherine McKernan, where we can hear again from Nick, Judy and Casray, and there will also be a topical on the housing issue just before lunch. Oh, just take 2 more cards. Thank you very much. And I call Frank Anderson to second the motion. Frank.
Hello. Chair, Conference, it gives me great pleasure to second this motion. And first of all, Nick says it was very hard to summarise what it is, but I'll summarise it in one phrase. For too many years, too few council houses have been built. That's the simple fact. We need to, as a party, not only offer a vision to the people of Scotland, but we need to offer radical, aspirational vision of where housing is going to be in a new independent Scotland. We need to move away from the fact that most governments now look at home ownership as being the wherewithal. A house is more than the 4 walls and the roof. We heard that the health centre, or the National Health, was at the centre of the crisis. But without a roof over your head, you are in dire straits from day one. We have the opportunity to set the agenda on housing. Move away and stop calling it social rented, affordable housing. It's council housing. And that's what we need to put back into the mindset of the people of Scotland. I'll be brief on this, and as Nick says, we want you to accept this in principle. The actual motions will come forward through the normal process of this party so as we can go into the details of where it is, but the principle has to be established first and foremost. And yesterday's theme was all about songs. And there is a great songwriter from this very city who wrote over 60 years ago, "How many years must one man have before he can hear people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died?" Without adequate housing, we are back in that situation. It's almost as if Rachman has risen from the grave. We need to make sure that we put people into adequate housing from day one. Homelessness is a blight on this great country. West Lothian, a population of 140,000, over 180 people per night are in temporary bed and breakfast. That includes families, but not housed in West Lothian. In some cases, they're in Dundee, Dumfries, Aberdeen, because we don't have the accommodation, temporary accommodation for them in West Lothian. And that costs West Lothian over £5 million per year. That would build 50 houses per year. We need to reprioritise where we actually put the money, not into the pockets of private industry who rake off all the profits. We need to put it into building houses. Get back to what our Victorian forebears done. Councils build houses so that people have adequate accommodation from day one. Please support the principle that we establish a visionary housing policy in this party.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you very much indeed, Frank. I now call Stuart McClintock to speak in favour of the motion, to be followed by Tony Osey, who will be our final speaker. Can I remind you, this is the same Stuart McClintock, for those who were here for the start of the session, who came to fix a power, left his breakfast in Kilmarnock. Yeah, what a hero!
you.
I'll be quite brief with this, right? Can you hear me now? Yeah. I'll be quite brief, right? We need to work how the housing system works in Scotland, right? I'll give you an example. There's too many Airbnbs and not enough houses. We can change the housing system, the Scottish Government should do, to require Airbnbs to go through a lot of hoops, operate as a business and pay the correct tax. We can also have a thing called the Rent Pressure Status Area, which is in the Housing Act. That would basically stop Airbnbs happening. We could require that, so that if there's a pressure housing area, there's not enough houses, we could require that remove permission for Airbnbs in those areas, so that people can't buy for Airbnbs and make housing not happen. We can also use the council tax. Second homeowners, we could have a double, treble or quadruple council tax. And we can also refuse permission on remote areas for Airbnbs and houses like that. That would put more houses into the public sector and stop the second homeowners, because we need to build more houses, and I agree with everything everybody else said before me on this thing. That'll be brief. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. I now call Tony Ozzie to speak in support of the motion.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, conference. Again, why I'm here is just for personal experience. And first of all, may I use this opportunity to commend Nick and his team. When Nick, first of all, brought this motion into our LACU, it's like everybody was lightened. Everybody loved it. Nick has done a great job, carry a lot of research. Housing crisis in the nation is a bit worrying. The disparity between the rich and the poor is alarming. I am a pro bono officer. I run a community center down south. I am constantly confronted with people flooding my center every day from all backgrounds, white to Asian to black to anybody you can think about. They're faced with a lot of crisis, especially in housing. Certain criteria is put in housings is making it difficult for less privileged people and low-income earners to access housing. The government, the local councils, access to building new houses has been cut, public houses have been demolished and privatized, making it people on a certain level, making it easier for people to acquire more than 1 or 2 houses, while the cosmetic decoration of the government that people of first-time buyers will be access to a certain percentage to get the housing, yet that doesn't happen. I think Nick's motion should be accepted to allow or to stop this keep going on, because we have a lot of people in the street who are supposed to be in the housing. If you look at what was discussed yesterday about poverty, these people are being stereotyped, and everybody don't have same strength. Poverty is made, and poverty can be eradicated. People suffer this, and it diminishes their self-esteem. Everybody doesn't have the same strength. So I think there's a lot we can do. But please, conference, accept this motion. Thank you.
While Tony's making his way down the stairs, I have no further cards in and no motions, no cards in against. So can I ask that the motion be passed by acclaim? I wonder if I could take this opportunity to also ask conference to applaud and give support to the work of both the Housing Policy Working Group and the Transport Group. These are party members with huge experience across these areas. It's exactly how policy should be developed. I'm very proud of what we've heard over the past 2 days from our policy working groups.